was 20 years old when I spent my first night in county jail. I had never been arrested before. I had never even been inside a police station for anything serious. But one stupid decision changed all of that in less than an hour. It happened on a Saturday night. My friend Tyler and I had been hanging around a shopping center when we made the kind of reckless decision that sounds funny until you're the one sitting in handcuffs. We tried to steal an expensive pair of headphones from a store. We didn't make it past the security gates. The police arrived quickly, and after a long, humiliating night of paperwork, I was told I wouldn't be released until Monday morning because the court wasn't open over the weekend. That was when I realized I was going to spend 2 nights in jail. The holding area was nothing like the movies. There were fluorescent lights buzzing above us, metal benches bolted to the floor, and a smell I couldn't identify. Sweat, disinfectant, old food, everything mixed together. Most of the people there looked like they had been through the system before. I looked completely different. I was nervous, quiet, and probably looked like I was about to throw up. A few guys laughed when they saw me. One of them called me college boy. I pretended not to hear him. Eventually, an officer called my name and led me down a narrow hallway. My cell was small. There were 2 bunks, a metal toilet, a sink, and almost nothing else. My cellmate was already sitting on the bottom bunk. He looked to be in his 40s, gray hair, thin face, a small scar above his eyebrow. He looked up at me and smiled. "First time?" I nodded. He laughed quietly. "Don't worry, you'll survive." His name was Daniel. At least that's what he told me. For the first few hours, Daniel was actually helpful. He explained when meals were served, when we were allowed into the common area, and which officers were strict. He even told me not to make eye contact with certain inmates. "Keep your head down," he said. "You're here for a couple days. Don't make enemies." I appreciated the advice. For the first time since my arrest, I felt like maybe I could get through the weekend. Then Daniel started asking questions. "Where do you live?" I gave him the name of my town. "You live alone?" "No, with family." "Parents?" I nodded. "What street?" I laughed nervously. "I don't really want to give out my address." Daniel smiled. Smart. But he didn't stop. He asked where I went to college, where I worked, whether I had a girlfriend, what time I usually got home. I started giving him vague answers. He noticed. "You don't trust me." "It's nothing personal." He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he laughed. "Good. You shouldn't trust anybody in here." That sentence stayed in my head. That night I climbed onto the top bunk and tried to sleep. The lights never completely went out. Every few minutes I heard footsteps outside the cell, doors opening, doors closing, someone shouting down the hallway, metal hitting metal. I couldn't sleep. At some point I rolled over and looked down. Daniel was awake. He was staring directly at me. "Can't sleep?" he whispered. I shook my head. Neither can I. I turned away. The next morning, Daniel seemed completely normal again, but something had changed. He started sitting closer to me. Whenever we talked, he would lean toward me. Once, while laughing, he grabbed my wrist. I immediately pulled away. He noticed. His smile disappeared for a second. Then he laughed again. "Relax." I didn't answer. From then on, I tried to stay in the common area as much as possible. I counted the hours until Monday. Finally, Monday morning came. I saw the judge, and later that afternoon, my older brother picked me up. The moment I got inside his car, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't tell him about Daniel. I didn't want to think about jail anymore. For the next few days, everything seemed normal. Then I received a friend request on social media. The account had no name, no posts, no followers. The profile picture was just a blurry photograph of a hallway. I ignored it. A few hours later, I received a message. There was a photograph attached. My stomach dropped. It was Daniel. He was sitting somewhere dark, staring into the camera. It was the same smile, the same expression. Under the picture were 4 words. "I told you I'd know." I blocked the account immediately. I sat on my bed staring at my phone. I had never told Daniel my username. I had never told him my full name. At least I didn't think I had. I changed all my passwords. I made my accounts private. I told myself he probably found my name through the jail paperwork. That explanation made me feel slightly better. Until 2 nights later, I was home alone. It was around 11:30 p.m. I was watching television when I heard something outside, a faint metallic sound. I muted the TV. Nothing. Then I heard it again. Clink, clink. I walked toward the window. There was a car parked across the street. The headlights were off. Someone was sitting inside. I couldn't see their face. I stepped away from the window. A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. Unknown account. Another message. This time there was no photograph, just one sentence. Don't look through the windows. My blood went cold.
Immediately turned off every light in the house. Then I heard something. A slow sound coming from the front porch. Footsteps. 1, 2, 3. They stopped directly outside my front door. I grabbed my phone and called the police. While I was whispering to the operator, the doorknob began moving. Slowly. Someone was trying to open it. I stood frozen in the hallway. Then the person stopped. For several seconds, there was complete silence. I thought they had left. Then came 3 quiet knocks. Knock, knock, knock. My phone vibrated again. I looked down. Another message. This one contained a photograph. It was a picture of my front door, taken from the porch, and beneath it were 5 words. You're much easier to find. I never opened that door. The police arrived minutes later. The car across the street was gone. Nobody was standing outside. There were no fingerprints they could use. No clear security footage. Nothing. But the next morning, I learned something that made everything worse. Daniel wasn't actually Daniel. The name he had given me was fake. And when I asked an officer if they could tell me who my cellmate really was, he gave me a strange look. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're not the first person he's followed after release. That was when I realized my weekend in jail wasn't over. It had only followed me home. Chapter 2. The Abandoned Prison Writing. I should have forgotten about the old prison. That would have been the smart thing to do. But some places get stuck in your head. For me, it was a massive stone building I used to pass every time I drove to my boyfriend's apartment. It stood several miles away from the main road, surrounded by trees and empty fields. From a distance, it looked like something from another century. Tall stone walls, broken windows, a huge tower in the center, and above the entrance was a weathered stone symbol that I could never identify. The strangest part was that nobody seemed to know what the building actually was. My boyfriend, Ryan, said it had been abandoned for decades. I think it used to be a prison, he told me. You think? He shrugged. I've never cared enough to find out. I couldn't understand how someone could drive past a building like that for years without wondering about it. So I started looking online. I searched the name of the road, old maps, local history websites, archived photographs, nothing. It was almost as if the building didn't exist. Eventually, I told my best friend Megan about it. She immediately became interested. We should go there, I laughed. Absolutely not. Why? Because it's an abandoned prison. Exactly. She said it like that was a reason to go. For several days, she kept bringing it up. Eventually, curiosity won. We decided to visit on a Friday night. We parked the car almost half a mile away because we didn't want anyone seeing it near the building. It was almost 1 a.m. when we started walking. The field was completely silent. No traffic, no insects, not even wind. The closer we got, the larger the building became. When we finally reached the front entrance, I noticed something strange. The giant metal doors were unlocked. Megan pushed one. It opened. Neither of us spoke. We stood there looking into darkness. Then Megan turned on her flashlight. 5 minutes. I shook my head. 10. She smiled. We stepped inside. The smell hit us immediately. Damp wood, mold, something metallic. The walls were covered in peeling paint. Our footsteps echoed through the entrance hall. We found old offices, empty rooms, rusting filing cabinets, broken furniture. Then we reached the main corridor. That was where we saw the cells. Dozens of them. Rows of metal doors stretched into the darkness. Some were hanging open. Others were completely destroyed. Megan walked ahead. I followed. Then we heard a sound. Bang. We both stopped. It sounded like something heavy falling somewhere deeper inside. Megan looked at me. Probably part of the ceiling. Let's leave. She hesitated. Then she nodded. We turned around. We had taken maybe 10 steps when another sound came from behind us. A slow metallic scrape, like someone dragging something across the floor. Megan whispered my name. I turned around. At the end of the corridor stood a man. He was completely still. He was tall and thin. He wore dark clothes and held a flashlight pointed toward the floor. For several seconds, none of us moved. Then he raised both hands. Don't panic. His voice echoed through the corridor. Megan immediately stepped in front of me. Who are you? The man smiled. My name is Victor. What are you doing here? He pointed toward a security badge hanging around his neck. I'm responsible for this property. Megan didn't lower her flashlight. Your security? Something like that. There was something strange about the way he said it. Victor explained that people had been breaking into the building for years. He said his job was to remove trespassers before calling the police. But he wasn't angry. That was the part that bothered me. He was too calm. He spoke as if finding 2 young women inside an abandoned prison at 1 a.m. was completely normal. You got lucky, he said. How? Usually people don't leave. Megan stared at him. What does that mean? Victor smiled. I mean, the building is dangerous. He started walking toward us. Megan raised her hand. Stay where you are. Victor stopped. For the first time, his expression changed. There's no reason to be afraid. We're leaving. Of course. He pointed toward the corridor. This way. We followed him. But after a few seconds, I noticed something. The corridor he was taking us through wasn't the same one we had entered from. I leaned toward Megan. That's not the way. She looked at me. What? The entrance. Victor stopped walking. He slowly turned around. What did you say? I felt my stomach tighten. I said that's not the way we came. He stared at me for several seconds. Then he smiled. You're right. He pointed toward another hallway. Sorry. It's easy to get turned around in here. We followed him again. But now I was paying attention. There were no windows, no signs, no doors leading outside, only endless corridors. Then I noticed something on the wall, a faded number. Victor saw me looking at it. Don't go in there. I asked why. He didn't answer. Instead, he continued walking. Megan grabbed my arm. We're leaving. Victor turned around. You should listen to me. His voice was different now, colder. There are parts of this building that aren't safe. Megan whispered. We're done. We turned around. Victor didn't stop us. But as we walked away, I heard him say something behind us. Quietly. Almost like he was talking to himself. Everybody says that. I didn't understand what he meant until we reached the next hallway. There was a door standing open. Inside was a tiny room. On the wall were dozens of names written in black marker. Some were old. Some looked recent. Megan stepped inside. I followed. At first, none of the names meant anything. Then I noticed dates. There were names beside each date. Some had been crossed out. Others hadn't. Megan pointed at the newest one. The date was only 3 months old. Underneath it was a name. Why would someone keep a list of people here? I didn't answer. Then we heard footsteps. Victor was coming back, fast. Megan grabbed my hand. Run! We ran. Behind us, Victor shouted, "Stop!" We didn't. We sprinted through the corridor. The building seemed completely different now. Every hallway looked identical. We turned left, then right, then left again. Our flashlights bounced wildly across the walls. Suddenly, we saw a metal staircase. We ran down it. At the bottom was a huge room, and in the center of that room was something neither of us expected to see. A row of old prison uniforms, hanging from hooks. There were at least 20 of them, all facing the same direction. Megan whispered, "What the hell is this place?" Then one of the uniforms moved. Not from the wind. There was no wind. It slowly swung forward, and behind it, we heard breathing. Someone was standing in the darkness. Megan grabbed my hand. We didn't wait to find out who. We ran toward the nearest door. This time, it opened, and beyond it was moonlight, the exit. We burst outside and kept running until we reached the field. We didn't stop until the building disappeared behind us. When we finally reached the car, Megan looked back. Victor was standing in the doorway. He wasn't chasing us. He was just watching. Then he raised one hand and waved. We drove away without saying a word. Neither of us slept that night, but the next morning Megan called me. Her voice was shaking. I found something. She had searched the name of the prison again. This time, she found an old newspaper archive. The building wasn't an ordinary prison. It had been a private detention facility, and according to the article, it had officially closed more than 30 years ago. The strange part? There had been no security company operating there for decades, which meant Victor had lied. But that wasn't the worst part. Megan had photographed the list of names before we ran. She zoomed in on the newest entry. The date was 3 months old, and next to it was a name neither of us recognized until we looked at the photograph again. The handwriting beside the name was the same handwriting we had seen on the prison wall, and beneath the newest name was a blank line, waiting for someone else. I thought the list was the most terrifying thing we'd find that night. I was wrong, because 3 days later, Megan received a message from an unknown number. There were only 6 words. "Why did you leave us behind?"
Chapter 3. The Door That Wasn't Locked. Writing 3 days after we escaped from the abandoned prison, Megan received a message from an unknown number. "Why did you leave us behind?" She sent me a screenshot immediately. I stared at the message for several seconds before calling her. "Who sent this?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Did you give your number to anyone?" No. Neither of us wanted to say Victor's name, but we were both thinking it. That night, Megan came to my house. We sat in my living room with every light turned on while I searched through the photographs we had taken inside the prison. There were dozens of them. Most were blurry because our hands had been shaken, but one photograph showed the wall covered with names. Megan zoomed in. "Look." At first I couldn't see anything unusual. Then she pointed toward the bottom. My stomach dropped. There was another name written underneath the others. My name. I stared at the screen. That's impossible. I know. The photograph had been taken 3 days earlier. My name hadn't been there when we were inside. At least, I was certain it hadn't. Then Megan zoomed in again. Her name was written directly underneath mine. Beside both names was the same date, Friday. Tomorrow. We called the police. An officer came to the house and listened to everything we had to say. We showed him the photograph. He looked at it for a long time. Are you sure this was taken inside that building? Yes. Did you write these names? No. He asked if we knew anyone named Victor. We told him about the man we'd met. The officer typed something into his computer. After several minutes, he shook his head. There is no registered security employee by that name. What about the building? Megan asked. He leaned back. For decades. Then who was that man? The officer didn't answer. Instead, he asked us something strange. Did either of you enter cell 14? We both shook our heads. Why? He looked at us. That's where a teenager disappeared. He explained that years earlier, several teenagers had broken into the building. One of them never came back out. The others claimed they saw a man inside, a man who called himself Victor. The police searched the entire property. They found nothing. No man, no teenager, no evidence. The case eventually went cold. That night, neither Megan nor I slept. At 2:13 a.m., my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Another message. You should have stayed. I blocked it. A minute later, Megan's phone vibrated. She received the exact same message. The entire house became silent. We sat in darkness. Did you hear that? Megan whispered. I listened. There was a faint sound coming from the backyard. Metal scraping against metal. The garden gate. Someone was opening it. I grabbed my phone and called the police. Before I could finish explaining, something hit the back door. Bang. Megan jumped. Then it happened again. Bang, bang. 3 slow impacts. We moved into the hallway. The back door handle began turning, slowly. Someone was trying to open it. Then the handle stopped. Silence. A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. I looked down. Another message. Don't look outside. I didn't. Neither did Megan. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. They searched the backyard. There was nobody there, but one officer found something lying beside the back door. A small metal identification tag. It was covered in rust.